No.
Urgent. This strike by the Ukrainian armed forces is something the Russians will remember for a long time. A massive explosion in Russia has shaken the entire country. A strike of revenge from the Ukrainian armed forces. Drones hit hard. The Russians are screaming in hysteria. So what was hit? Let's go through everything step by step. Greetings. This is Ukraine Today. I'm Renata Aslanova. The latest events. A series of explosions occurred in Rostov-on-Don. Local residents are complaining about a drone attack and a fire. And Russian Telegram channels are lamenting about the hellish explosions and a fire on the roof of a 4-story building in the city center. Before this, a drone threat had been declared in the Rostov region. Local residents claimed they heard at least 3 loud explosion sounds. The published footage shows that it was a residential apartment building that was on fire. A representative of the Rostov region authorities, Yuri Slyusar, confirmed the drone attack and stated that local air defense allegedly shot down 10 drones in Taganrog, as well as in other areas. Thus, in the region, debris damaged several facades, roofs, and gates of private houses, and a car was also damaged. Fragments of UAVs fell in Novoshakhtinsk, specifically in the yard of a private house. There, the roof and roofing of several houses and a car were also damaged. There were also problems with the power supply.
In Rostov-on-Don, the fall of a UAV caused an explosion and a fire on the roof of a 4-story building on Kalturinsky Lane. Emergency services arrived at the scene. Information about casualties is being clarified.
Later, he added that supposedly, due to the UAV falling onto the roof of a residential building, a fire broke out covering an area of 250 square meters. The fire has been contained and there are no casualties. But it's not just there that good drones are reaching. The strike by Ukrainian UAVs on Russian oil refineries disrupted the operation of at least 17% of Russia's oil processing capacity. As a result, Russia lost the ability to process about 1 million barrels of oil per day, which were previously sent to refineries for the production of gasoline and diesel fuel. According to Reuters calculations, Russia is being forced to increase its oil exports while the US is pressuring China and India to reduce their purchases of this raw material from Russia.
Look at how it's bursting out really intensely. It's burning hard, right? The main part caught fire, most likely.
In addition, the consequences of the strikes on oil refineries have caused a gasoline shortage in some parts of Russia, amid peak seasonal demand for gasoline from tourists and farmers there. In particular, a shortage of A95 gasoline has emerged at gas stations in occupied Crimea, as well as in Russia's Far East. As analysts note, the affected oil refineries have only lost part of their capacity, but this may be enough to cause problems with fuel supply to the domestic market. For example, on the night of August 24th, the armed forces of Ukraine struck the Novoshakhtinsk oil products plant in Russia's Rostov region. After the strike, a fire broke out at the facility. They have been unable to extinguish it for 5 days now. And since the beginning of August, this is already the 9th Russian oil refinery targeted by Ukrainian drones. 7 of them have suffered serious damage. For instance, on August 6th, the Ryazan and Novokubishevsk refineries were hit. On August 7th, a refinery in Krasnodar Krai was struck. On August 10th, the Lukoil refinery and the Saratov refinery were hit. On August 13th, the refinery in Slavyansk on Kuban was struck. On August 14th, 15th, and 19th, the Lukoil refinery in Volgograd was targeted. On August 15th, the Syzran oil refinery in Russia's Samara region was hit. On August 21st, the Novoshakhtinsk refinery in the Rostov region was targeted. According to analysts' estimates, due to drone attacks in August, Russia lost about 13% of its refining capacity. It was previously reported that as a result of strikes on Russian oil refineries in occupied Crimea and several other regions of Russia, gasoline at gas stations began to be sold only to businesses and organizations using special cards, and retail fuel prices rose sharply. Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now. It seems that under such conditions, Russia is not only unable to supply the country with fuel, but can't even simply keep people employed during refinery repairs. At the same time, the situation at Russian refineries appears to be only getting worse. Putin has repeatedly rejected all proposals from Kyiv and Washington, which means that long-range strikes on Russia will only intensify. Watch the full story for more details.
In Primorsky Krai, there are kilometer-long lines at gas stations due to a fuel shortage.
This is what the line looks like on Melniknaya. In short, this is the situation at Alliance. Well, it's probably already at 0 kilometers. Everyone here is waiting.
For gasoline or kerosene.
Currently, there are problems with gasoline in many regions of Russia. Earlier, in annexed Crimea, there were problems with gasoline at gas stations due to the special military operation. And in Zabaikalsky Krai, gasoline began to be sold with ration cards. The main reasons are inflation, high demand, and constant strikes on oil refineries. The last factor is becoming especially significant. Ukrainian drones attack Russian oil refineries almost every night. This is a strike on the Lukoil oil refinery in the Volgograd region, which is among the top 10 in Russia and is one of the largest producers of petroleum products in the southern federal district. Over the past week, Ukrainian UAVs have struck oil refineries 3 times already. The plant has ceased operations approximately until mid-September.
We are now increasingly seeing that almost every single day there are widespread reports of major, highly significant oil refineries located in the European part of the continent being substantially damaged. The latest is the Lukoil plant in Volgograd, and drones are even reaching as far as the Ukhta plant in Komi, the Lukoil plant, and some plants have simply shut down.
On August 2nd, after UAV strikes, the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery stopped operating. On August 11th, the Saratov oil refinery stopped receiving raw materials. On August 15th, it became known that the Volgograd oil refinery had stopped. And on the same day, after a drone attack, the Samara oil refinery also stopped receiving oil for processing.
Drone attacks on Russian oil refineries, which intensified in August and led to the shutdown of at least 4 major refineries, have deprived the economy of 1/7 of its most powerful oil processing capacity. Thus, in just under 3 weeks, oil producers lost 44.3 million tons of annual refinery capacity. That's minus 13.5% of the country's total, which amounts to 328 million tons per year.
According to Reuters, repairs at some plants will take at least a month, and the Samara refinery will be idle until the end of August. The difficulties with repairs are related to sanctions.
Western equipment for oil refineries fell under European restrictive measures as part of the very first sanctions package due to the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, and this is causing disruptions. As a result, in 2025, Russia once again faced a gasoline shortage. Exchange prices for AI-92 and AI-95 have soared since the beginning of the year by 40% and 50% respectively, setting new historical records: 71,970 rubles per ton and 81,337 rubles per ton.
If Ukraine continues to strike Russian oil refineries, the problems with prices and the availability of gasoline itself in Russia will only get worse. And the current, very long lines for fuel in some regions of Russia will seem like absolutely nothing compared to what could potentially happen, for example, in just about a month's time.
If the Ukrainians were to forget Biden's explicit request not to strike vital oil terminals on the Black Sea yet, for example, in the significant port city of Novorossiysk, in Tuapse, or on the Baltic Sea, where Ust-Luga and Primorsk are the 2 main and crucial terminals, and were to start actively attacking them, this would undoubtedly and seriously affect Russia's overall ability to export its oil.
Strikes on Russian oil refineries and the resulting loss of capacity, as well as the potential for increased attacks, are a serious trump card in possible negotiations between Zelensky and Putin.
But it's not only in the rear that the armed forces of Ukraine are causing problems for the enemy, but also on the front lines. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Ukrainian drones delivered a powerful strike against Russian logistics. An enemy fuel train was blown up. The train derailed, after which drones continued to finish it off. The situation on the front remains tense, as the enemy is trying to advance in all directions along the front line. We will share all the details further in the video. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Ukrainian drones delivered a strike against Russian logistics. Between the occupied village of Urozhain and Tokmak, a fuel train was blown up. According to Petro Andriushchenko, advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, the train derailed, after which it was finished off with everything that could fly. Effectively, the railway connection for the Russian army through the occupied part of Zaporizhzhia region has been paralyzed. The strike was carried out by the UAV battalion Ronins of the 65th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Meanwhile, the situation at the front remains tense. According to Deep State, the enemy has advanced in the area of the Serebryansk forestry in Luhansk region and near the settlement of Olhivska in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Taking advantage of identified weaknesses in the defense, if these areas were previously considered relatively stable, now the enemy is trying to exert pressure. The Pokrovsk direction remains the most difficult. Over the past day, Ukrainian soldiers have repelled 50 assault attacks here in the areas of Volodymyrivka, Mayak, Novoekonomikne, Rodinske, Rodivka, Novukrayinka, and other settlements.
The situation remains extremely tense, meaning the enemy has concentrated a very large amount of the resources they have here. First and foremost, the occupiers are trying to make use of those resources. This is an extremely large number of personnel, basically disposable orcs. It could be occupiers with varying levels of training or hastily gathered, excuse my language, vagrants, mercenaries, criminals, convicts, I don't know, just anyone they could find, untrained, unequipped. Yes, unfortunately, there are also among them highly trained, highly skilled special forces units. Moreover, there are quite professional pilots and quite professional artillerymen.
In addition to infantry, the Russians are actively using various types of UAVs for attrition, trying to strike at the rear up to 30 kilometers deep.
In fact, the concept of a front line no longer really exists. There is simply a zone of activity, a zone of contact, and enemy UAVs, various types of FPV drones, some strike wings. They can fly in 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 kilometers. So there are all sorts of cases. The enemy really does use different tactics, but sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. But in most cases, these assault attempts are unsuccessful for the enemy.
Heavy fighting continues in other directions as well. In the Novopavlivka and Lyman sectors, there were 61 combat engagements in the past day. The enemy attacked the areas of Hrushivka, Zeleny High, Timirivka, Komishuvaka, Zelena Dolina, Kolodiazy, Torske, Yampol, and Hrihorivka. Activity remains high in the Turetsky, Kupiansk, southern Slobozhansky, and Pridniprovsky directions. And despite the difficult situation in the skies over the Lyman region, an interesting episode occurred. 2 FPV drones simultaneously hunted an enemy strike UAV. Anti-aircraft gunners from the Steel Lions Brigade and pilots from the 53rd Brigade tried to destroy the Russian Molnya. In the end, the target was hit. The past 24 hours have also been among the most intense on the front. The enemy carried out missile and airstrikes, conducted artillery shelling, and used drones. In turn, Ukraine's defense forces are steadfastly holding the line and striking back. Over the past day, our fighters struck 9 areas where enemy personnel, weapons, and equipment were concentrated, 2 artillery systems, and 1 important facility belonging to the Russian invaders. The General Staff is not disclosing details for now and makes it clear to the Russians any attempt at an offensive will be destroyed. Every assault, every drone, and every enemy vehicle is under fire.
And what do you think about these explosive days and nights in Russia? We encourage you to share your valuable thoughts and insights in the comment section below. Please make sure to hit the like button, which is located directly under this video, to ensure you stay continuously updated on all the main and most important events. There is much more exciting content to come in the near future.